The experiencer of contact with non-human intelligence is the key that will open the door to understanding what is consciousness and what is the relationship between consciousness and contact with non-human intelligence. Disclosure is taking place not from the top down, but from the bottom up. This in turn will provide a better understanding of the vast complexities of the multi-dimensional reality. The scientific community believes that they have a firm grasp on scientific principles, but in fact, we know almost nothing. We know the equivalent of 1 grain of sand in the entire beach.
We don't like to use the word ETs because people see all different types of beings, hundreds and hundreds of different types of beings, and some are physical and some were not physical. Was that we're dealing with a phenomenon that's multidimensional. Okay, it's not a physical 3D reality. It's much more complicated than that. So, and that this phenomenon is associated with, not the same thing, but associated with near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, ghosts and spirits, and a whole array of paranormal phenomena.
Okay, so we know that we're not alone in this universe, definitely. Secondary, many people saw lights in the sky, or they had something unusual experiences. So we know that we don't know who are they, but they are here.
Yeah.
They're visiting us. Why?
Well, that's the $1,000 question. I can give you what the experiencers are telling us. We spent a year developing questions, okay? And we came up with 3 surveys, hundreds of questions. Eventually, over 4,200 people took our surveys, and from over 100 countries. And Bulgaria was one of the countries.
Really?
Yes, correct, for English language survey. So now, in terms of answering your question, your very specific question, we had numerous findings from our survey, okay? One was what people were telling us, okay? If people are interested, I can give them to them for free, chapter 1, which is 120 pages. That will tell you in that free document what people were told by the ETs, okay? The main common, several main common areas. One is that we are slowly destroying our planet. Okay, and that our planet might not survive, that we need to change the way we view our planet.
Is that true that we have only 100 years to resolve this problem?
No, that's a scientific question. I don't know, okay. And most scientists don't know that. But most scientists that study climate change, at least from anybody else, you or anybody else that's researching this, they know that we are in very critical stage here. So one of the main messages was the ecological messages, okay? And that's very, very consistent. We're talking like, you know, maybe 80% of the people that have had direct contact with non-human intelligence receive that information. Number 2, the second major thematic topic area is the issue of spirituality. They were told that we humans are barbarians, okay? That, for example, in the last century, humans have killed more than 100 million humans. And that's through wars, you know, that we are, you know, very, very primitive, that we need to change, that we need to become more loving, okay? We need to become more loving, and we need to become more spiritual. Those concepts, it's all part of one. We need to change.
That is the point of all religions in the planet, but looks like that is not very helpful.
Well, they never mention religions.
I mean, because the whole religions, they preaching for love, to like each others, but for all these years, looks like that is not helpful.
I think with your statements, there's half truths and half not truths.
Okay.
For example, many of the religions say we are the religion.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
If you don't follow my religion, you're going to go to hell.
Yeah.
No matter how good you are. Okay.
Right.
So all the religions have that type of that type of perspective.
But the basic thing is the law.
Yes, correct. That's the contradiction in man-made religion.
Yeah.
Okay, the contradictions.
Okay.
That love is really the foundation for all of this.
Yeah.
But what people are receiving, for example, what in near-death experiences, as well as with UFO contact experiences, and as well as out-of-body experiences, when people don't understand that many of the out-of-body experiences involve communication with non-human intelligence. Okay, that's something that a lot of people don't know, but it's extremely common and extremely widespread phenomenon, out-of-body experiences. And if your audience members don't know, I could try to talk a little bit more about that later on. But basically, in all of these different near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, UFO, people are getting the same messages. So when people return from a near-death experience, for example, let me give you an example of a near-death experience for the audience members that do not know what that is. Let's say, for example, you have a heart attack, okay? And then you die, and then you float out of your body, and then you see your body underneath you. Okay, and then you see all the people coming to you, trying to help you, to resuscitate you. They might call an ambulance. You might see the ambulance underneath you, and then all of a sudden it's like a vacuum cleaner sucks you up, and then you're going through this long tunnel very, very, very fast. And then you see a light gets bigger, and then the light is all around you, and you go through that light. Okay, and then you begin to have encounters with deceased family members. Okay, if you are an adult. If you're a child, you don't, many times there might be grandparents that you never met, things like that, okay? But you have interactions with a deceased family member that you realize that they're spirits, okay? But then, for many people, they then see a being.
Spirits, but they still have the human form.
Yes, correct, human form, yeah. Most of them are young looking. They're like in their 20s. The person might have died when they're like 80 years old, but you see, the younger version of them. That not all of them, but the majority of them. Okay. Now, then you have an encounter with a being that's like pure energy, the way people describe it. They know it's not a spirit. They know it's
angel,
something bigger. The way they describe it is like the mind of God, or God, the way they describe it. Okay. They don't describe it like a religious figure. Okay, the overwhelming majority of these people, they described it, some of them say that it's like a human type of figure, just so you're not scared of it and you are able to interact with it. But it's pure energy, radiating energy all around it, pure energy. What we found out in this survey of 4,200 people is that 80% of the people, 8 out of 10, have had an out-of-body experience. Okay, that's very large numbers. Okay. And like I showed you, when people die, they go out of their body, okay? Other people in their out-of-body experiences, they travel to other realities, other dimensions. Most of the people just stay in their home. Some around their house, the house next door, around in the neighborhood, because they're scared.
For how many dimensions exist?
No, nobody knows that. If anybody tells you, they have physicists. I know because I talk to a lot of the physicists, PhD physicists, and there's different theories for dimensions. Like even within string theory, Michio Kaku is the most famous person for string theory that has their 11 or 12 dimensions. But even in one of those dimensions, Michio Kaku states there's almost an infinite amount of dimensions. Okay, even in one of those realities.
It's not easy to catch up in the human mind.
No. Well, on that topic, we're talking about a lot of different things. Let me just interject here for your audience members, okay? Dr. Rudy Shields, who's like Stephen Hawking, he's still alive. He's almost 81 years old. And again, he taught astrophysics at Harvard University for 45 years, okay? We're talking about a genius like Stephen Hawking. As a matter of fact, he said 25 years ago that Stephen Hawking is wrong about black holes.
Yeah.
Okay? Stephen Hawking was wrong, all right? Mm-hmm. That's why we use this as a tribute to Dr. Rudy Shields and the information aspects of Dr. Edgar Mitchel that he worked on. So it came out several years after Rudy Shields stated that. Stephen Hawking publicly admitted, I was completely wrong about black holes. Okay. So, I mean, that's who I'm talking about. Yeah. Rudy told me, Ray, if you graduate today, not only in the United States, all around the world, with a PhD in theoretical physics, okay, you're going to be an adherent, a believer, okay, in a multiverse theory. Now, which one depends on what you're being taught, okay? But there's different types of multiverse theories like we were talking about before. But what he told me was that almost everybody that gets a PhD in theoretical physics today is going to understand all the different multiverse theories, and most probably will support one of these theories, okay? Yeah. So here you have all the geniuses of the world, all the Stephen Hawkings of the world, or the Rudy Shields of the world, all these preeminent physicists, knowing that our reality is not three-dimensional, okay? That it's multiple dimensions. Right. But yet humanity doesn't understand this. Yeah. Okay?
It's not easy to understand.
It's not easy to understand, correct. But if you begin your life being educated to understand that our reality is not, this solid physical thing, that it's not this, okay? Mm-hmm. That is much, much more complicated. Then that opens your understanding that this UFO contact phenomenon might be a little bit more complicated than what we think it is, mm-hmm. okay? 95% have had paranormal experiences. Yeah. That's huge numbers. And then we can go into all the different paranormal topics of it, okay? People that have had, for example, what you had, okay, precognition, knowing something that's going to happen in the future. That was like 90%.
So something looks like something happening, something begun in the world. You say many people have that experiences, but why that happening?
Okay, let me give you a response. All right. Okay, and I'll give you an easy way for your audience members to think. Okay, I think what's happening is that our reality as we know it, okay, humanity might not exist. Okay, for not too long. Why? Because of the ecological factors that we talked about. Yeah. Okay, or at least humanity as we know it, okay, might not exist. We might be, for example, what would happen if all of a sudden in 100 years all the major cities along the oceans are totally destroyed? Okay, you would have a lot of starvation. You would have a tremendous exodus, relocation. You would have wars, you would have power struggles, geographic battles, okay? Maybe nuclear wars, okay? So it's like the humanity that we think we're having now is going to be not what it currently exists now, okay? So what's happening now is that we're getting all these messages from many different sources that, look, we better change, like I discussed before, okay? Now, let me give you some examples for the audience members, okay? The whole topic of UFOs or space people coming from outer space, when did that really become popular, okay? That was before the internet, so you can't say it's the internet, okay? Yeah. Star Trek, right? Yeah. Star Trek, the television series became popular, was shown all around the world. I don't know, in Bulgaria, did they have?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. In your language, okay? Yeah. And so Star Trek started in the late 60s, 68 or 69, but then really became popular in the 70s, the early 70s, okay? Now, near-death experiences. When did near-death experiences reach popularity, that humanity learned about it, okay? The ancient traditions, the Greek, Roman, and from India, they all discussed it in a lot of their writings, near-death experiences, but it became popular in 1975 when Dr. Raymond Moody published a book called Life After Life. And that was the first book that became very, very popular about near-death experiences. Now, the paranormal experiences, was very, very famous in the late 1800s, especially in England, with Frederick Myers and a whole bunch of other people. But paranormal experiences, people have been talking about it for thousands of years, and but that has expanded now. So that's another of the paranormal phenomenon that we ask questions about, and it was many, many people. Let me give you an example of just a strangeness, but the point that I'm getting at is that all of these experiences, these paranormal experiences, all came about publicly, worldwide, at the same time. Why?
Maybe it's time.
Okay.
Maybe people is preparing. Century after century.
There's a reason why these three major experiences, the UFOs, the out-of-body experiences, the near-death experiences, why all of them became well-known around the world at the same time, within 15 years, 10 to 15 years of each other. Okay? There's a reason for that. So people have to think. There's no coincidences in life.
What is the reason?
Okay? For us to change.
Yeah.
Like the messages that we got in the book that I talked about later.
Yeah.
We need to change how we treat our planet. We're destroying our planet. Okay? If we continue with this, humanity is not going to be what it is now. Okay? Look at this.
Like a confirmation.
There was no wind before. Now look at this. Okay?
Yeah.
It's a confirmation. Okay?
Yeah.
Secondly, we need to become more spiritual, more loving, to understand that we are not flesh and bones, that we are eternal spiritual beings. Okay? The out-of-body experiences confirms that. The near-death experiences confirms that. We're not just flesh and bone, okay? We're something much more than that,
Mm-hmm.
okay? So that's the reason why we're changing. Now, let me give you an example of these electronic voice boxes, okay? There's a medical doctor who lives less than a mile away from here, a medical doctor who for 40 years has been studying electronic communications from non-human intelligence, okay? Whether it's ghosts or spirits or whatever, you know, that's up for debate, but captured messages. So we can go to his house and he'll show you hundreds of these auto types. Yeah, I mean, well, we need to arrange it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
not right now.
But he's a rheumatologist, and he learned that training in Spain, because he got his medical degree in Spain and then came to the United States. He's a Cuban American, like I am.
Okay.
Anyway, let me tell you another story of this major ufologist in Chile, in South America, okay? He's probably the most famous ufologist in Chile, and one of the most famous in Latin America.
What is it?
Rodrigo Fuensalida. So, Rodrigo has had contact with UFOs, has seen UFOs, okay, and for years. So he became a nuts and bolts ufologist, like most of the people that enter this field, okay? And then all of a sudden he began to have all these paranormal experiences. Same thing like we documented in our book, okay? Like same thing happened to me, you know? And so then one time he was talking on Skype with a friend. Most of the people here have used Skype or know about Skype, okay?
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden, a friend of his that has died less than 2 years ago, a young female woman, jumps on the Skype conversation, okay? Obviously not through video, but through audio. And I said, how clear was it? She said, Ray, it was like crystal clear. It's like she's on the other side, okay? And then they had a 2-hour conversation.
With her?
With her. Okay?
And what she say for this world?
Well, you have to interview Rodrigo, okay? But it was like he said, we're out for 2 hours. Then he said it happened like 4 more times.
Yeah.
Okay? One other time, I forgot how long it was. Maybe like 15 minutes. Another time it was much shorter, 5 minutes. Then like just a couple of seconds, things of that sort, okay?
She just came.
Out of the blue. Out of the blue. Okay? That she's well. You know, not to worry. Tell her family, tell my family not to worry. I'm fine.
If people knew that, maybe they're not going to suffer too much when someone lost someone very close.
Correct.
family.
Correct. Like when my father died.
Yeah.
Okay, he was suffering. Okay, the last month it was hell. You know, his physical body. It was horrible, horrible, horrible. Okay, so when he died, I was happy.
Because you know.
Because I know where he went.
Yeah.
Okay, and he already had a near-death experience.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But he wasn't physically. He wasn't suffering. Okay, and so, and I also have read up all the literature on near-death experiences, on post-death communications. So I you know, you become educated to these things.
Can we, I'm sorry to interrupt again, what we can say to all these people who is watching right now, the people who lost very close, I mean father, mom, brother or sister, what we can tell them to be more, I mean, it's normal to suffer for losing someone, but
Sure, that's the part that hurts.
Yeah.
Because he was my father.
Exactly.
So it's not like I was happy that he died. No, you know.
Yeah.
I'm very sad because it was my father.
Of course.
Okay, but I know in the long term, you know, he's fine. He's
Yeah.
okay. He's a spirit. So what I would tell these people who have recently had a deceased relative, a child or a parent or brother or sister that has died, if they do speak English, I don't know in Bulgaria, you know.
that will be with subtitles.
Okay, but at least in English, you type in on YouTube, you type post-death communications, okay? We went to Oklahoma to interview a medical doctor, a pediatrician, okay? She has seen 12 UFOs.
The same time?
No, different times, okay? 3 of these UFOs were like right on top of her. One time, it was, she called it like a manta ray. Manta ray is almost like a triangle. I don't know how you could translate that in Bulgarian,
Okay.
you know? A manta ray, huge. She said it was like more than a mile wide at night that blocked out all the stars. You couldn't see the stars because this craft,
It's massive.
massive, okay, went right over her and her husband, okay? So she's a pediatrician, a medical doctor,
Did they
okay?
film it?
Huh?
Did they film it?
No, as you know, whatever this intelligence is will not allow you to film us
True.
up close.
Sometimes they allow.
Excuse me?
Sometimes.
You showed me an up-close film, okay? Like the UFO that I called down was 30 feet away from me. It was the size of a small football stadium.
Yeah. You told
Okay.
Me. Yeah, told me.
Everyone had a cell phone.
Yeah.
Everyone.
But
No one took it. Why?
Because maybe you don't think about.
No.
right now.
It's more complicated than that.
Okay.
We're changing subjects here a lot.
Yeah.
But basically, the reason is that people don't understand what this intelligence, they're able to get into your mind. They're able to extract information back to them about you, all of your life, all of your thoughts. And at will, they're able to put thoughts back into you. Okay? That's what people don't understand.
Yeah, of course.
Okay? All right? And so,
it's not easy.
yeah, but this is, for example, a CE5, right? A common term. I prefer the term HICE, Human Initiated Contact Experiences. In English, it's HICE. Okay? Why? Because that's what it is. It's a human being that's initiating the contact. Okay? Human initiated contact experience, right? Now, commonly called CE5. It's happening all over the world that people are doing this. In 15 minutes, there's a UFO. 20 minutes. Okay? Now, now the debate now is, are you creating that through your mind because of our multidimensional reality, or is it some non-human intelligence in some other universe or reality?
Or maybe you open portal or kind of.
Well, that's the external idea. But let me finish the medical doctor, and then we could touch upon that.
Okay.
The different theories, okay? This medical doctor, 3 times when she was with her husband, she saw UFOs, okay? Not far away, okay? One time right above her at low altitude, that she was able to see all the underparts of the UFO, okay? She's also had 2 major near-death experiences. One was about 6 years ago, and she's 62 years old now, okay? And she's writing a chapter in our book, okay? 2 out-of-body experiences. She's had 3 experiences with Sasquatch. How do you translate Sasquatch in your language?
Something like Bigfoot.
Like Bigfoot? Okay.
Kind of.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
the same thing, people calling it different things.
Okay.
One time, right on top of her. Okay. And another time, maybe at like 10 meters, the distance, okay, from it. And then another time when she was driving the car in a rural road, she saw it. She said they're huge. Okay, they're very, very tall. Okay, and she said they have no neck. It's just like shoulder and a head on top of it.
Yeah.
And then the shoulders, the way she described it, is like it's like this. It's huge. Okay, massive.
Tall, like 10 feet, 20 feet.
Tall. The way she was describing it seemed more like 12 feet.
12 feet.
Yeah, in height.
This is huge.
Is huge. Yes, correct. She said that the very first time she saw the Bigfoot, she was driving on a rural area, very rural area, and there was 2 Bigfoot. One was taller, another one was smaller. That they stepped over a fence. They didn't jump. It was like stepped over the fence. Okay, and then I can go into the details of the Bigfoot.
Just
but
for a second, Native Americans told me with witnesses of Bigfoot from in New Mexico, in Dulce.
Okay.
They say that they just show up from nowhere, like from another dimension or something, like, I don't know, just show up. They have some evidence, like a hair, so they make research in lab, and they say that is not human.
Yeah.
And they gone again. The only one evidence they left was the hair in the bush.
Okay. Well, she was mentioned that one of her 3 experiences, Bigfoot was looking inside her car.
Come live with us. We'll accept the responsibility. Can you imagine what a Bigfoot would do to your home? Oh, abominable snowmen. There are no Sasquatches. There are no big feet. Oh, Lord.
Like looking like this. She had left the car open. This is when it was like 10 meters away, okay? And then it turned around, saw that she was there because it must have heard her walking. And all of a sudden she said it like ran like super fast, and jumped because there was like a ditch and you had to run into like the woods. There was like maybe 4 feet to jump to get into because they had dug the road lower and then a ditch so the water can run, you know, like with a tractor, you know. Mm-hmm. And so she said that it just jumped like super far and then ran like maybe about another 10 meters into the woods and then it disappeared. Okay, but she described the anatomy.
Yeah.
She, as a physician, she described all the muscles that were moving, how it was moving, and this muscle and that, the muscles and the trapezoids in the back, the whole thing. She said the hair was like a shaggy dog. Like, you ever seen these dogs that have very, very long hair?
Yeah.
She said that's how the hair was. And she said it was meticulous. It was like very groomed, you know? Very elegant. The one time that she was close to the Bigfoot, she smelled it. It was like a horrible smell. To me, my personal experiences with the field of ufology, and I'll be very blunt, for a lot of people that might be going to your future conference, to me, the field of ufology is, how should we say, how could you translate this? A cesspool? Okay, were you in the rural areas where you go to the bathroom in the rural areas? Okay.
Yeah.
It's a cesspool of misinformation and disinformation on purpose. Okay?
Yeah.
So people are not getting true and accurate information about what really is going on.
And internet is the same.
The internet is the same thing. The internet is even much worse.
Why the contact was made, I mean, first kind, second, third kind, whatever, fifth kind, in South America is all contacts is positive in South America.
The vast majority, yes, correct.
Yeah. And why people in North America?
Okay, let me tell you my hypothesis.
Okay.
I can only give you my hypothesis, okay? In South America, people did not read the English trash of Bud Hopkins and David Jacobs, okay? So they weren't biased. They weren't tainted with that misinformation, okay? What it was in South America was people talking about their experiences, like our book, okay? Yeah. And then people would go with cameras, they would film someone having these experiences, okay? Now, what you get in South America, just like we got in our surveys, is that people, what we found out was that in the very beginning, 37% of the people viewed their experiences as highly negative, as traumatic, which is natural, okay? All of a sudden, you're vacuum cleaning the floor, like Barbara Lamb, a very famous researcher, okay, from California, and this 9-foot-tall reptilian appears right in front of you, okay? Has the body of Arnold Schwarzenegger, okay? Even bigger, the body of a crocodile, the head of a lizard, and the eyes like a cat, okay? So what's the first thing you're gonna do? You're gonna piss in your pants.
Definitely.
From being scared, okay? Now, Barbara Lamb did not, because she's used to this, because she's spoken with thousands of people that are having these experiences.
Different species?
Different species, okay? She's spoken to thousands of people that have had these interactions. So what does she do? I'm not afraid of you, okay? Why are you here for? Okay? And they began to have a telepathic communication because she wasn't afraid. But the whole point that I'm getting at, okay, is that we analyze through data, through scientifically derived data, because there were many PhDs involved in this research study, okay? And what we got was the truth, not the bullshit, okay? Now, what happened with these people that are having these experiences, initially 37% viewed it as negative, but over time, they be having other experiences, okay? For example, the people that had like an abduction experiences, that was only 1/3. That's it. 2/3 of people never had an abduction.
Yeah.
Okay, 1/3. Now, out of that 1/3, 70% now call themselves contactees, not abductees. You know, contactee is highly positive. Why? Because in the beginning, they might have been paralyzed. They woke up like on a table, and these little tiny creatures, you know, the grays, little grays were examining them, that sort of thing, okay?
Yeah.
But the people that only had 1 or 2 of those type of experiences, they remain negative and traumatized. But for many people later on, all of a sudden, they got to go on a UFO. They got a tour of the craft. They got to drive the craft. And you know how you drive a craft?
We have
with your mind.
We have experience with this in Bulgaria.
Okay, no, I mean, we've had hundreds of people.
I have a young man.
Well, he's just one out of hundreds of people that took our surveys.
Yeah.
They got a tour. Here's, you know, you want to go to the bathroom, go here. You know, you want to eat, here's this, you know, the tour of the craft. Right. And then on top of that, many of these people, I think it was like over 200 people, got to operate the craft. They said the way you operate the craft is...
The humans?
Yes. The way you operate the craft is...
With the mind.
With your consciousness, with your mind.
Put the hands in a special place, or just sit in the chair?
Well, depends the people, what they tell us, you know.
Okay.
Now, what also they told us is the actual craft is a live being.
Yes.
It's live and conscious.
Right.
Okay? So, why? Because you can actually...
communicate with
the craft, people don't understand. What you're seeing is sort of like a holographic projection, okay? That is both physical and non-physical, okay? The craft can change shapes, sizes. What my wife saw inside her house was a little craft.
Yeah.
And she still says there was little people in it, okay? So you can, because remember, when you're manipulating space-time, size and shape is all changed. Okay, so that's how complex this phenomena is. But you only get that data, that information, from doing statistical, scientific data analysis. Okay, now what complicates ufologies is that you have all these other crazy people being invited to give talks Okay, people like, for example, do you know that this woman? You ever heard of the name Laura Eisenhower?
Yes.
Okay.
The daughter or granddaughter.
That's bullshit. Okay, here's a woman. You listen to her talk. It's all conspiracy theories. Okay, she was being, all of a sudden, Corey Good became famous and made a lot of money through Gaia TV and through the lectures. He was paid a lot of money through these lectures before the secret space program. Okay, he was beamed up to Mars. Okay, and like various times, and then when he returned, he was young again. But yet he was up there 20 years. Yeah. So she saw all the money being made here, and all of a sudden, hey, I was part of the secret space program too. Yeah. Okay. So you have, and then all of these conspiracies, the reptilians are taking over the world. Ufology, the way it is now, all over the world, not just the United States, is a cesspool. Now you know the definition of cesspool, right? A latrine where you go in the rural areas to go to the bathroom. It's a cesspool of misinformation and disinformation. Okay? With no science, no statistical analysis. All the PhD academics, Dr. Valet, will have almost nothing to do with ufology. Okay? All the scientists in our organization will have almost nothing to do with ufology, but yet they're interested in, because they know it's a valid phenomenon.
Let me ask you something.
Please translate that. Put that there, translate it. I went to Berkeley for a PhD. Okay. Even though I've had all these experiences and I'm open to all these things, I'm always looking for explanations of science and data that might explain certain phenomena. Now, what I will tell you about pictures and cameras is that it's very, very well known that people taking pictures, they see ghosts, spirits appear. Okay. Also, people have had superimpositions of other people. For example, there's a man in the Netherlands, very famous man. I forgot. He has I forgot his exact name. Okay. But you go out with this man and you give him your camera, and all of a sudden you'll see pictures superimposed on top of each other. Like, for example, Albert Einstein would then come out, like in the picture that you're taking. Okay. Now it's not his camera. It's your camera. Okay. So we know that phenomenon exists, and certain people have that characteristic, that trait.
Billy Myers?
No.
Okay.
It's
that doesn't matter. I'm just thinking.
The name is like Van Hoven or something like that. I forgot his name, but he's from the Netherlands. He's still a young person. Okay, so we know that he's just an example. He's not the only one. But there's a lot of people out there, and historically that's been documented that this phenomenon exists. That my best explanation is somehow like your consciousness is superimposing that image into the photo. Okay, for example. Okay, again, we're talking about aspects of that has been studied in parapsychology, for example. Okay, and it's all based upon like quantum physics. Okay, for example, the double slit experiment, very famous experiment in quantum physics that there's people doing it all over the world for students that are taking basic quantum physics classes. Okay, and so you are able to change, photons between particles to wave functions
with the
consciousness. I don't know if you knew that. Okay.
Why not?
Go into YouTube. I'll tell your audience members. Go into YouTube and type in double slit. Slit is SLIT. Double slit experiments. The reason is because they have like a box and they have like two slits, two holes.
Okay.
Like this.
Okay.
So they put a particle, an accelerator, a photon, not accelerator, a machine that makes like a laser. Okay, a laser, and then depending on whether someone is observing it or not, you can change from the photons going into each slit that will be like straight lines. You'll see straight lines going up and down. And then on the other way is you'll see waves. Okay, waves. Okay, like you see a lot of different like that. So it's the human being, not only the human being, but whether there's like a camera there for observation as well, changes that. So it's a very highly complicated term. I cannot explain it because I'm not a physicist. Okay, but this is what I was told and what I was shown for educational purposes. So it's on the internet. Okay, so what I'm telling you now is that the human consciousness has an ability. Okay, and that's just an example. Another thing is, all the experiments that Dr. Dean Radin is a member of this organization. He's, we've quoted him in a quote from him right here. Dr. Dean Radin, Chief Scientist at the Institute of Noetic Sciences, IONS, which is the organization that Dr. Edgar Mitchel formed, which is the world's preeminent organization that's studying parapsychology and consciousness and other aspects as well. And he's the author of several books. One is called The Conscious Universe. The other one is Entangled Minds, Entangled, Hooked Together, and Supernormal and Real Magic. So 4 major books. All of them discuss consciousness and science. Data, 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 experiment, experiment, experiment. And so Dr. Dean Radin wrote, our book, Beyond UFOs, is an important book because it reveals that many ordinary people are having extraordinary and sometimes profoundly life-changing experiences. These experiences, which often arrive spontaneously, reminds us that today's scientific understanding of reality, and especially the role of consciousness in the physical world, are seriously incomplete. That means we just don't understand it.
Yeah.
But what it is that our reality is not what we think it is. It's much, much more complicated. Okay? But what our book has demonstrated is that the thousands and thousands of people, okay, they're having not only contact with UFOs, but they're having paranormal lives. Okay? What we discovered was the physical aspects of their experiences were small. The paranormal aspects were huge. Okay? For example, let's use me, my own personal experiences. I've seen 4 UFOs. 3 of them were very close. Okay?
One in your house.
That I called down.
No, I mean one in your house.
Oh, well, I don't know if that was a UFO or not. That what I saw, my wife saw like a little UFO. My wife. Yeah. Now, what I saw after my wife disappeared with my dog in front of me, and I was. And right before I was put to sleep by this intelligence, I saw what I call an energy being.
Yeah.
It was a form of pure energy, like this wide.
Like a human, or?
No. Let me describe. It's like a rectangle. Rectangle shape. It was like this wide. Okay. Maybe this height. Floating 4 feet off the ground. Okay. Multiple colors, and it was all waving like this. Multiple colors, and it was semi-translucent. Okay, now whatever this intelligence was, it totally controlled my mind, because my wife had disappeared right in front of me, and our dog, the dog that we were going to be euthanizing, putting to sleep later that afternoon. Now what happened was the day before at night, when 8 o'clock my wife came in, she had just come from church, praying for 3 days in a retreat. The retreat was a prayer retreat. So when she came home, I told her our dog became totally paralyzed. And before, she was very, very sick. She had like an old lady, 90-year-old lady, very bad arthritis, you know. And then all of a sudden, she became totally paralyzed. She couldn't move. She was like, you know. And so we called our veterinarian. He says she had a stroke, a cerebral hemorrhage. From what you're telling me, we're going to put her to sleep tomorrow. So this experience occurred early in the morning at 6 o'clock in the morning. So here my wife disappears in front of me. The dog disappeared in front of me, okay? I could only see that energy being in front of me, and I looked at it, and I said, bullshit. This is what you got me up for? So you woke me up at 6 o'clock in the morning for this bullshit? I'm going to sleep. And I turned around, I went to bed, and this thing put me to sleep immediately. Whatever this intelligence. Now, is that normal, what I did? Is that logical? No.
No, it's not.
It's not, okay? Now, when I called the UFO from the sky, similar experiences occurred. There was telepathic communication, mind to mind, and the whole UFO, I call them UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon. That's my terminology. But UFO is a common term that people understand, okay? Now, all of a sudden, it changed what it totally looked like. You're watching an object in the sky, a huge object, and in my mind I said, you better do better than this, because my friends, they don't think you're a UFO. So all of a sudden, boom, it totally changed into something totally different. You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, this is not just about, this is beyond UFOs. It's not just about UFOs.
Yeah.
It's something much more complicated that we just do not understand, okay? Mm-hmm. But we have to understand it, try to understand it in a rational, scientific way to be able to try to document what we don't understand, okay? But if you get people like Corey Goode and David Wilcox and Laura Eisenhower as the main speakers of your UFO conference, I'm not gonna go, because that's bullshit, okay? That's bullshit.
Yeah.
We need to try to explain this, okay, by documenting the phenomenon, documenting it, document. And now you might not come with explanations, you might not get answers.
Maybe you're talking about new paradigm of science.
It's a new paradigm of trying to understand what we're calling the contact modalities.
Because the science we know now, it's very limited.
Correct.
So that's why I'm saying maybe we'll be more clear if we say new paradigm of science.
Well, the title of our new book is going to be published in July of this year, 2020. So you're thinking of having your conference in what, September?
Yeah,
of
2021.
2021, September 2000. Okay. By then we should have many volumes of this new book. We're planning 3 volumes. Each
only in English.
Well, you want to pay for the translation? But you see, it's 820 pages,
yeah.
This book. We want to have 3 of these books, okay? Now, the title of that book is titled A Greater Reality. How do you say that in your language, a greater reality?
A greater?
A greater reality. Just a rough translation.
No, I understand it, but I cannot translate it.
Okay. Well, you better translate it for the video that you got here.
Oh, yeah.
So the name of our new book, it's going to be at least 3 volumes, is titled A Greater Reality. Okay. The new paradigm of consciousness, the paranormal, and the contact modalities. Okay, so that's what we're trying to get at with this new book. Okay. What we're showing is that, and just to give you an illustration, this is a very, very simple illustration, but at least for people to understand, okay. These are the contact modalities, which involves all the different ways that humans are piercing the veil, or going through the veil of our reality, and having contact with non-human intelligence. And as you see, what's holding it all together is consciousness. That's the glue that's holding it all together. Yeah. So what we're arguing is that there are many, many different ways that humans are piercing the veil to another reality. Our reality, you could think of it like a membrane, like a wall. Humans are going through it into another dimension and having contact and communication in many, many different ways. Also, ghosts and spirits, okay? People are seeing ghosts and spirits. People are communicating with them. As I said, go to YouTube in English, if you understand English, type in ghost and spirit communications, or post-death communications. That's after someone dies, yeah. Our relatives come back to you and tells you, I'm okay, I'm fine. So these are just a couple of examples of the many different ways. Psychedelics. People take ayahuasca. They take the mushrooms. In Spanish, it's hongos. I don't know in your language, these mushrooms. They're called psychedelics, okay? You take this, it's like all of a sudden you go into another reality. And there was an academic research study that Dr. Rick Strassman, who's a medical doctor, a psychiatrist, did in the United States. Now, I think almost 20 years ago. And he did a study of DMT. DMT is the psychoactive ingredient in ayahuasca, okay? Which is, ayahuasca is a mixture of two different plants that you cook up mainly in the Amazon region of South America.
Yeah.
And now it's like industry. People go to the Peru, Ecuador, and Brazil to do ayahuasca. Okay, so he did this 20 years ago before it was commonly known. Okay, and what he discovered was that 50%, half of the people in his study, had communications and contact with non-human intelligence. Okay, many of those people, when they take ayahuasca in the jungle, for example, saw a UFO. Okay, let me give you an example of someone that I know, a friend of mine. This person was studying to be a PhD in chemistry. Okay, highly intelligent person, knows chemistry extremely well. Okay, major UFO contact experiencer. Okay, has seen UFOs many different times, and the type of being that he was interacting with were called the mantid beings, which are like the insect type of beings. Okay. And so he was always scared from that because of what it looked like, you know, physically to him. And so him being a chemist, okay, he learned how to make ayahuasca. And then what he did is he made it into a powder. He ground it up to a powder, and then from the powder, he made it so you can inhale it. Okay,
yeah.
So you just breathe it in, and so that it's not like smoke. There's no smoke. It's like pure air. Okay, well, not only he, but many other people that I spoke with that are UFO contact experiencers tried this with my friend. He's not in the United States. He's in another country. Okay, all of a sudden, it's a big group of like 10 or 11 people are doing, you know, the ayahuasca, right? And everybody sees a UFO right above them. Okay, everybody, not just one person, everybody. And I've heard many of these types of stories. Now, what can be possible explanations for this?
Open mind.
Because what the DMT does, it opens your mind up to another dimension, another reality. You are piercing the veil. And as you're piercing the veil, somebody over here might be listening, okay?
Yeah.
Or you are creating this.
Do we have a company now?
What now?
Do we have a company?
A company? I don't know. I'm not one of these people. I'm not there's different scientific terminology of people who have these abilities. Okay, it's not just a psychic reader, you know. But that phenomenon is very real. For example, I interviewed this 80-year-old lady, major experiencer of ghosts and spirits, the angelic realm, and UFOs, and different types of ETs. Okay, so so part of you could say this lady's crazy. Okay, so we could only document her story. She did show me lots of videos of UFOs and photos. Okay, I have the photos and we have the video because we interviewed her for our documentary, just like that medical doctor I told you before. Okay, now this lady, I said, can you give me a psychic reading? Okay, now it was very late on the second day. We interviewed her for 2 days. It was very late. She was very tired. She says, this drains me. Her, you know, she's very tired, you know, but she said, I'll try. Okay. I said, well, can you read my wife, my daughter, and my father who died? Okay, well, let's start with my wife. My wife, a year ago, had brain surgery for an aneurysm. An aneurysm is like an artery in your up here that gets big like a ball, is ready to explode. So my wife had surgery for that. She could have died from that, right? So she doesn't know anything about my wife, okay? All of us, she's telling me, your wife just had a major, major illness. They've told me, you don't have to worry about it no more. It's gone, taken care of. And I'm like, whoa, you know, right? Right. And then my daughter is just graduating high school with a college degree. Okay, with a 2-year college degree.
That spider is in your...
Oh, in my neck.
I mean, not in your neck, but close to that.
Okay, is it the jacket? Okay.
In the jacket.
Well, there's some spiders, little ones, that do cause you problems, okay?
Yeah, probably.
You worried with these spiders?
I mean...
No, just kidding, just kidding.
I heard some stories.
Yes, me too. I know. I have a friend who was bitten by a little spider, and he was in the hospital for 3 months.
Wow.
So anyway, so my daughter is very, very smart. She's an experiencer. With me, she saw this big, gigantic UFO for 45 minutes, 10 meters away.
During this time, you talking with them? Or just
Yes, it was
observing?
telepathic communication. Yeah, yeah.
What they tell you, if it's not secret?
No, well, I would have to get into a long story
Okay.
about that. But let me continue with my daughter now, okay? So my daughter also has had 3 people that have told her about their near-death experience. The first person was her pediatrician. I asked the doctor, excuse me, doctor, have you ever heard of near-death experiences? I've just finished reading 300 books about this. It is something that you need to know about. And as I was saying it, in my head was like, why did I say that? Why did I say that? You know? She looked at me like, right? And I said, oh my God, this woman now must think I'm crazy, right? And I said, oh, I apologize, doctor, I apologize. I don't want you to think that, you know, I'm crazy, you know? No, there's no need to apologize. How did you know I had one? And then with my daughter next to me, she goes on and details all of her near-death experience. Okay, so I'll just give you an example of my daughter, okay? Right. My daughter is graduating high school with the highest of honors, okay? Almost straight A's, okay? She'll be graduating high school with 2 years of college. And what does she want to study in college? Neuroscience. Why? Because neuroscience studies the mind and also consciousness, but they study it from a materialist perspective. But she also wants to take courses in the philosophy of the mind, okay, which is all deals with consciousness. Because she said, Daddy, I want to study consciousness, but I want to explore all aspects of consciousness, okay? So anyway, and she wants to be a doctor, a psychiatrist, a medical doctor, right? So here I go to this old lady. She doesn't even know I have a daughter, all right? So she says, your daughter? Science, 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 science. I see lots of science, lots of science. She goes, very, very smart, very, very smart. But very loving, very, very, very loving. She's going to be a healer. She's going to heal thousands of people. And I'm like, how does she know that? These things exist. Now, can we explain it? No, not yet. Because we just do not understand space-time. Okay? And can I tell you a little story about Jacques Vallée?
Yeah.
Okay. Jacques Vallée, to me, and Dr. Edgar Mitchel were the 2 most respected people in the field of ufology. And Alan Hynek towards the end of his life, because he realized it's not just nuts and bolts, okay, it's also psychic, okay. Jacques Vallée was interviewed about 30 years ago on this TV show called New Thinking Aloud. And the person that interviewed him is a member of our organization. His name is Dr. Mishlove, M-I-S-H-L-O-V-E. Okay, Jeffrey Mishlove, Dr. Jeffrey Mishlove. So he received a PhD from Berkeley. So Berkeley has the most Nobel Prize winners in the world. So, and that's where I went to study for a PhD. Okay, so he interviewed Jacques Vallée, and Jacques Vallée had a background in astronomy, and then later on he was one of the inventors of the internet. Okay, and then but yet more for our purposes of discussion, he's been studying the UFO contact phenomenon since the early 1960s. The early 1960s, and he has a totally different perspective, and he's written, goodness, more than 20 books now on this phenomenon. Just look up the name Jacques Vallée. If any of the people in Bulgaria has seen the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind, okay, there was a Frenchman in that movie. Supposedly the world's leading authority.
That's him.
That's Jacques Vallée. Okay, they made that role, that part, because of Jacques Vallée. Now, that movie is 20 years old.
It is.
Okay? So that's how famous Jacques Vallée is. He's still alive, okay? Now, Jacques Vallée has the same philosophy as we do. The same exact philosophy. Okay? Now, in this interview that was 30 years ago, Jeffrey Mishloff asked Jacques Vallée, she says, many people are having these contact experiences with these little creatures. People call them the grays, the small grays. Okay? He says, do you think that they come from another dimension? Right? So Jacques Vallée, very, very smart man, doesn't answer him right away. He hesitates. He goes, what I think is that we just do not understand space-time. We do not understand space-time.